we are Now we all got our notification on that. We will also be placing the slide deck, recording, and handouts on the Alive member side in the file archive in the next few days. We have a couple of announcements that we're excited to share. The National Summit on Volunteer Engagement is the Alive Volunteer Conference. We're so excited in 2026 to bring this to you. We will be in sunny Sacramento, California. This is specifically designed for volunteer engagers at all levels of their professional experience to come together, share best practices. We are very excited. More information can be found on our website, and we'll keep you up to date when we open registration. Alive is proud to be a Global Volunteer Month partner with Points of Light. So we invite you all to join us as we celebrate Volunteer Appreciation Month and sharing the impact of our volunteers and the work that they do with our organizations. We have a couple of upcoming Alive Academies that we're excited to talk about as well. Our May Academy will be on May 13th, and it's Consider, Evaluate, and Reimagine Community-Centered Volunteer Opportunities. And then in June, we will have a topic that I know is a very popular topic where there's questions quite frequently about how do we say goodbye. So Best Buys, Mastering Exit Interviews for Volunteers with Adrienne Potter. So exciting things coming up in the future. Check the calendar. We hope you're able to join us for those as well. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to today's presenter, and we will have her go through her introductions. We are proud to share that she is one of the Alive Presenter Bootcamp graduates. So Megan, if you want to take it over, I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. It's great to see some familiar names and faces. Give me just a second to share my screen and get everything all set up for you guys. And I will just say that technology has not been my best friend today. So if we run into some challenges, I apologize in advance. And all right, one more thing so I can see my notes on here. All right, so let's get into it. Thank you all again for being here, and congratulations to all of you during Global Volunteer Month. You all deserve a pat on the back. Yes, feel free to put any questions in the chat, like Nicole said. I have some interactive stuff, so I hope you guys will continue to talk in the chat. Today, we are going to be exploring the exciting realm of partnerships and volunteer management. So we'll kind of uncover the highs, the lows, some of the nuances in between with having partners, and additionally guide you on how to navigate partnerships and enable you and your partners to have the success that everyone wants. All right, so just a little bit about me. My name is, again, Megan Patterson. I am the Senior Manager of Operations and Volunteer Engagement at Gateway Arch Park Foundation. We are the philanthropic partner for Gateway Arch National Park. So that's why I'm here to talk to you about partnerships, because that's what we do best. Prior to working at the foundation, I worked at a small historic site. I am trained in museum studies, so exhibits, collections, all that good stuff. And something I like to do when I present is just get it all out there in the beginning. Nicole had a great word for it earlier, and I can't remember what it is at this point, but I like to tell you what my fears are. And public speaking is my biggest fear. So thank you for being along with me on this journey and being put on the spot, which I'm sorry, but I'm going to do that today with you guys. So be ready to be put on the spot. And also, my favorite phrase is words are hard, because 90% of the time, my brain and my mouth do not connect. So bear with me if I forget words or I can't get them out of my mouth or I just don't make sense at all. Just bear with me. We'll get through this together. Um, all right. And Donna here is going to be monitoring the chat for me. So anything that goes in there, she'll kind of let me know. And if you feel so inclined, please share your fears. If you have any like I do, put them in the chat. It just makes me feel a lot better moving through this. So next we're going to go over a few housekeeping things. All right. So again, this session is being recorded. Get ready to participate. Have your phones nearby. We have some QR codes coming up too. Use the chat, raise your virtual hand for comments. I'm not sure if you guys can actually do that, but if you can, please do that. If not, that's okay too. That's what the chat and Q&A is for. Another thing is I'm working from home today, so I have pets. They may make a guest appearance in the camera, or you may hear barking or screaming in the background because the mailman normally comes around this time. So, all right, so let's get into the content of this presentation and talk about why we're here today. So we are here to get the most out of partnerships in your volunteer program. So every colleague, individual volunteer that you work with has a superpower, and it might be in disguise. You may not see it when you first meet them, but everyone you know is packed with unique knowledge and skills and abilities. So how do you unveil those talents and get them to work with what you are and your strengths and weaknesses? How do they fill the gaps for you? And it's a thrilling journey. It's a challenge. It's fun. It takes a lot of trial and error. So we're just gonna talk about how we can unlock those and talk about what partnerships are and what they mean to volunteer engagement. And to do that, we have to understand what are the types of partnerships. So if you go to Google and you type in the word partnership and look up the definition, you're going to kind of tumble down a rabbit hole of business jargon like general partnership, limited liability partnerships. There's another one that has a lot of LLLPs in the description or the acronym. So I just want to say that's not the type of partnership that we're going to be talking about today. Because partnerships and volunteer engagement can mean so much more than and be so much more than just a business deal that's sealed with a handshake or the nod of a lawyer. In our work, partnership goes beyond those formalities. It's taking something and transforming it into something meaningful that's beneficial to you, to other individuals, to organizations, to your community. So how can these relationships boost your organization's grand purpose to help others? And so this definition here, partnerships refer to a formal or structured relationship between two or more parties, often with a specific goal or purpose in mind. This is the most basic form, but I didn't feel like it covered everything, so I made up my own, and I want to share it with you. So a partnership is kind of like a pact between two or more individuals, organizations, volunteers, communities, joining forces to chase a mission or purpose that makes everyone be in a win-win situation. In short, there are business-related things in these partnerships, and they can involve swapping of funds, time, energy, resources, knowledge, interests. If there's any other things that you feel like partnerships can involve, please feel free to put those in the chat. So other ideas on what the collaboration cocktail looks like. And so we already kind of talked about business partnerships, that limited liability, general liability. But I also want to talk about public-private partnerships, which is something that I work in every day. So Gateway Arch Park Foundation, like I said earlier, is the private partner. So we are a nonprofit organization that provides philanthropic support for Gateway Arch National Park, which is a federal organization through the National Park Service. So they are the public side of what a public-private partnership is. And the park also has lots of other private partners. For example, we have an organization called Bi-State Development. They run the tram system and the river boats at the park. We have Jefferson National Parks Association that runs our gift shop. We have the city of St. Louis who owns a park nearby. They own the riverfront that part of the park works with. And we also have Great Rivers Greenway. They run the greenway that is next to the park. They help support that other park that's owned by the city near Gateway Arch National Park. So we all kind of work together to create a system that uplifts the park and makes it vital and welcoming for everyone. Partnerships can also be a part of it's a personal relationship too. So whether that's with your spouse or your friends or your neighbor or your pet. My dog is sitting right here for emotional support. So she's a partner in this with me. So if there's any other types of partnerships, feel free to go ahead and drop those in. And then we're going to talk about why are these partnerships so important in the work that we do every day? It's because they expand our access to resources in our community, to skills that we may not have, to networks. And this leads to more effective and impactful volunteer programs. So I want you to picture this. All of the partnerships that you juggle in your career and your daily life, it's kind of like a grand symphony that we're all leading. And it's an all access pass for us to every department at our organization, to different neighborhoods in our community, to the people we serve, and to our volunteers. And this lets us kind of have a hand in everything that we do. And it's epic team ups like this that make a more impactful mission for us. And it creates this win-win scenario that, you know, everyone walks away with something that they need and they want and a motivation. All right, so next is when I need you guys to get your phones out, and I want to know, we've talked about types of volunteer or types of partnerships, but I want to know what the word partnership means to all of you, because it can look like and mean a lot of different things, but it all starts with a relationship. So if you want to, I'll give you a few minutes, go ahead, scan that code. And this is where the technology was not my friend today. So I'm going to stop my share and reshare a different screen so you can see all the words that are coming through. And I apologize, I took the QR code away too fast. Thank you, Amy, for dropping that in the chat.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm seeing some really good words here that are going to be coming up later. All right, so yes, working together, understanding, communication, collaboration, impact, give and take, teamwork, dependability, innovation, a lot of connection, all of these things we're going to talk about later. So you guys are really nailing it. And thank you so much for sharing these words. There's one word in here that I'm really glad someone put, that is one of the key pieces of partnerships. So I'll give everyone a few more seconds to kind of take a look at the word bubble we have going here. All right, and I'm going to go back to our other slide. Oh, we still got some more words coming in. Strength in numbers, impact, transparency. That's a good one. All right, thank you all again for participating in that. All right. So let's get into the most important key to partnership. There's one magic word that someone got, that I want you to think about as a running theme through every partnership that you have. It's kind of the secret sauce for building and energizing strong partnerships. And that word is trust. So if you put trust, let me know in the chat. All right. All right, Kat, nice job. Um, so how do we become the trust-winning champions for our people, our communities, our organizations, and our volunteers that we want to team up with? I have a whole list of things, and that list could go on and is not all encompassing, but these are some of the things that are the key building blocks of rock solid partnerships and trust. And crafting these takes time. And for lack of a better word, trust me when I say I'm still mastering a lot of the things we're about to talk about. Um, and I struggle with a lot of these elements on a daily basis. But as we're going through that list, I want you all to give yourself some grace and think back to when you started out as a volunteer engagement professional and think about how much growth you've had in these areas to today. So reflect and then think about how you can grow to get to the place you want to be in some of these areas. And just a reminder that, you're going to see some setbacks whenever you're crafting and building these strong partnerships and you're building trust with other organizations, people, volunteers. Don't let those setbacks get you down because we're all gloriously human and we have to remember that we are human and we make mistakes. And that's okay. That's kind of the beauty of all of this. So here are the treasures of building trust and partnerships. One is crystal clear communication. This is where you're going to see a lot of the same words that you put in the word bubble. Clear communication always letting everybody that's involved know all of the details. This was something I struggled with a lot, that I've gotten much better at, as I've grown in my career. Another one is transparency, just being open and honest. And that kind of goes into, I also have vulnerability and empathy on this list. I feel like those three go together. I was really vulnerable with you at the beginning of this presentation when I was like, my biggest fear is presenting and being put on the spot. And I think being open and honest about what you're looking for, what you're asking for, what your needs are is extremely important when you're building the trust in partnerships. And also having empathy, understanding where others are coming from and being open to their ideas and their thoughts and their ways of doing things. And being reliable, making sure that what you say you do gets done, and holding others accountable for if they say they're going to do something, that they're getting their part done too. And that's all communication. And then when you have a partnership, you're all working towards the same goal. So that shared aspiration, how you get there may have different approaches, but you're all trying to get to the same spot. And also, I just want to say I did use the Canva AI to make my notes much more fun. So if I laugh a few times, it's because some of this stuff is very funny to me. The next one is teamwork sorcery, which makes me really happy. But teamwork makes the dream work, and that is so true when it comes to partnerships and collaborating and making sure everyone's on the same page. And we've mentioned this a little bit, but problem solving is important because partnerships are extremely challenging, and there's a lot of nuance and a lot of, there can be headbutting. So how do you work together to solve a problem, whether that's a communication problem, an issue that came up, like, I don't know, your presenter didn't show up and now you have to scramble for an event and you have to scramble to find someone to fill their spot. How do you work together to do that? In partnerships, you don't know what the outcome is going to look like. And you have to take risks to get there. So fearlessly facing the unknown. You can't enter into a partnership and know what's going to happen. So it's all unknown, but you're in it together. So that makes it you're all in the same boat. So just being okay with taking risks and not knowing what's going to happen. And sometimes what happens is better than anything you could possibly imagine. Another one is, again, we're all human. We make mistakes. Owning up to our oopses. I make oopses every day, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. So just taking responsibility and ownership to be like, hey, I tried this approach and it really didn't work and kind of backfired. How can my partners help me readjust and approach the situation in a different way so that we all get what we need? And then the last part of my list is being truly present, which is really hard in today's world. We have our emails going off, our phones going off, something on the news, there's people talking around us. We have, never ending to-do lists. We wear so many hats. So how do we work on being present? And that's something I want to do with you all right now. So something I want everyone to close their eyes. We're going to be present after this. Close your eyes, take a deep breath through your nose, and breathe out through your mouth. And that's a way you can ground yourself to whenever you're feeling overwhelmed and chaotic, like I do 90% of the time. Just take a step back, take a deep breath, and realign to be present in the situation that you're in. All right, so I hope that was all helpful on earning trust, what goes into trust, and how that relates back to partnerships. But next, I want to know, I want to hear from you, and this can be dropped in the chat. And I think we've got a few folks over here that are going to come off mute and talk. All right, so I want us to chat and share personal stories about partnerships that you've been involved in. What went well in that partnership? What challenge did you face? And what did you learn from the partnership? So I know Nicole's ready to go on this, so I'll let her take over.
Um, Thank you, Megan. I was giving this some thought and I had so many great uh scenarios, but the one that I think that I'm most proud of is the one I'm going to share. I had a partnership with a colleague of mine who worked in a different department, and we had a challenge working together. And I just was like, I was talking to my supervisor and I was like, I think she has a problem with me because every time I email her, she doesn't respond back to me. Just like all these, she'll respond to everybody else, but she won't respond to me, just like different things like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have a conversation with her. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. You know, I'm not sure if I did something like would you be willing to talk? And she was like, sure. So we talked through the muddiness because what happened is there was a third person in the mix who when she talked to her she was saying one thing about me and then when that person was talking to me to her about me she was saying stuff. So once we kind of got the third person out of the way and we just had a direct conversation, I was like, oh, but I never said that. And she was like, well, I never said that. And we had a direct conversation. It just cleared the air and we were able to build the most magical onboarding training program because she was coming from the program side. So she wasn't in the volunteer department side, but her being on the program side and me being on the volunteer side, we were able to make magic happen. And she was very instrumental in teaching me a lot about the software that we were using to manage a lot of things. And I was able to teach her a lot about volunteer engagement and working with volunteers and like best practices on maybe how to approach a volunteer to try to get things done. And ever since that, from prior before I was at the organization, we worked so well together. We knocked things out together. We built at least 2 or 3 programs before I was laid off. So I was really proud of that because instead of me sitting in the funk of it all, like I kind of went out of my comfort zone and was just like, is there something that I'm doing that's bothering you that maybe we can work through? Because she's phenomenal at what she did. And so I just was like, well, am I standing in the way? And it turned out it wasn't really me standing in the way. It was somebody else who was standing in the way. And when we got that third person out the way, it was magical. So that was the challenge. That's what went well, and that's what I learned.
Thank you, Nicole. That is the perfect example that I was looking for. So thank you. And that, that story kind of reminds me of a similar situation that, our co-managed volunteer program at the park has been in. It it was new 5 years ago. It started in 2020. So, when I started to build this program, I'm like, well, it's COVID. There are no volunteers. Can't really talk to people at the park because it's closed. So how do I build a volunteer program with just what I know without volunteers and make it work? And that was, collaborating with other co-managed volunteer programs with the National Park Service and figuring out, hey, what are you doing? And how can that translate to my park? And the story I want to tell kind of is why this presentation is titled Small Wins, Big Success. So the co-managed volunteer program was a huge success for our organization. It was the first time that the park was like, yes, come help us do this program, run this program together. But there was still a little bit of distrust, like, hey, these are our volunteers, what are you doing coming in? And one big thing that I wanted was the foundation logo on the volunteer uniforms, because I thought it was important. We're co-managed, we need to share that information. And after hearing no so many times, continuing to ask the question, like, hey, can we get the logo on the uniform? And getting no and reasons why they couldn't do it. And I was like, okay, let me reframe this a little bit. So I took a step back. I found other parks that were doing similar things, put together kind of an outline for it, re-shared it, and the park was like, oh, okay, other parks are doing this, why can't we do it? And it was, taking that step back, being like, okay, here's my challenge. I want the logos on the uniform, can't get them. How can I restructure my approach to it to get that to happen where it's a mutually beneficial thing for everyone? And then 2 years ago, they were like, absolutely. So now our uniforms are dual logo. And that seems like such a small win because it's a logo, but it has such a big impact because now people can see who the foundation is, what we do, and how we support the park in a way that is beneficial to the park. So, that's kind of what went well, what challenges did you have, and what did you learn from the partnership? And then I saw someone put in a message in the chat. So I see, Mariana, you were new to the volunteer management, higher ed, alumni relations. Her first supervisor left in the first 9 months and have had a few since then and felt like, didn't get a grasp on your position. I totally understand that. And then a couple of years in, you felt like the recent partnership helped. So yeah, so it's just kind of, it takes time. It's a growing pains. It's a learning curve for everyone. And we've been in the volunteer program at our park for 5 years and we're still learning things. It's not set in stone. And we know other programs that have been doing these partnerships for 10+ years and they're still having growing pains and learning from each other constantly. And we learn from them all the time. So I feel like kind of overall lessons learned from partnerships is collaborating with others. It can be challenging, but the shared objective remains consistent. You're all working towards the same thing. And that is to attract volunteers, fulfill your mission, and encourage people to come back again and again. And finding those workarounds can be extremely effective. What made sense to let go of, and what, is it worth fighting for? It's okay if you have to let go of things in a partnership, and figuring out, what that workaround looks like. So it's all about compromise, which I believe was another word in that word bubble. Okay, and then before we get into the next piece of the presentation, you probably hear this a lot, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, I think that's a little negative because it's 2 negatives and 1 positive. So the good, the bad are negative, or the ugly and the bad are negative, and then the good is the positive piece. So I want to shift that and do the challenging, the good, and the better. And we'll get the challenging out of the way first. We'll talk about the good and we'll talk about what's better. One thing, the reason I didn't put the best is because I don't think that you're never going to get the best. Things are always evolving and always changing. So things are always better, but the best is something you continuously should be striving for. And if you can meet that, that is excellent. But I think things can always be a little bit better. So let's talk about the challenges that we face in partnerships and volunteer engagement first. So here's my list, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into each of these topics. So challenges are differing work styles, and this is something that I think happens a lot in relationships, just any kind of relationship. It can be a personal, professional, organizational, anything like that. So I just want to talk through the different working styles, and a lot of these play off of each other. So this is going back to the finding your superpower. What is that, and how can you fill strengths and weaknesses and gaps within your partnerships? So one is the lone wolf. And unfortunately, I tend to fall under this one, and I understand that there are a lot of flaws with that. I like to fly solo, do my own thing. But again, starting, looking back on where I started, I've come so far in this, and I feel like I can identify myself in a lot of these different working styles. So I want you to also think about which of these sounds like you, and it can be multiple of them. It doesn't have to just be one. And there may be others that I'm not even thinking of here that you can possess. We have a team player. This is someone that loves collaboration, loves a good huddle, wants everyone involved in every decision-making piece, which I think is extremely important in partnerships. This is how you get that openness and that understanding and that communication really, really flowing. You have someone that enjoys working near others, but holds onto their tasks right. Their task reins is what it said, like that AI fun thing kind of shifted my notes a little bit for me. But the close quarters, and I understand this too, when you work on something so much and you have all these people involved, it's kind of hard to let go of control sometimes. And it feels like a challenge to let someone come in and kind of take some of the load off of you. And I feel like that's what this close quarters is. And I'm that person too. I fall into this where, I want other people to work on it, but sometimes I have a little bit of hard time giving up the reins on certain projects. We have the connector. So this is kind of what Nicole was talking about in her partnership, building bridges with colleagues. So she worked with her program person and was like, hey, this person has strengths that can be used to benefit the organization and the volunteer program and the volunteers. So she was like, okay, they have these skills, I have these skills, let's work together and collaborate on them to build something that's better than either of us could do on our own. And then we have the visionaries. These are like the big picture. You're like, all right, this is what we can be. And they just take it and run with it. And next is the analyzer, and this is kind of the detail detective. So I think the visionary and the analyzer work really well together because the visionary's got this big idea that they want to run with, and the analyzer can take that big idea and break it down into small steps. And again, this is where the small wins, big success comes in. So you break this big idea down into bite-sized pieces, and you get small wins along the way. And once you get all of your small wins gathered into something big, that's when you meet the big picture. That's when you get to your goal. Another one is goals don't always align. So not everyone's marching to the same drumbeat. You might have the same destination in mind, and this is our mission, this is our end goal, but your approaches to getting there are different, which can sometimes lead to headbutting. And this is where a lot of times you hear the phrase, well, we've always done it this way. And I think that's a hindrance to partnerships. Now, don't get me wrong, if things are running really smoothly and you've always done it that way, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, but I think there's always room for growth there. So again, goal alignment, this is being open, being honest, being vulnerable, talking through things, figuring out how you can meet the goal, even if you have different approaches. And then it requires compromise. Not everybody is going to get everything that they want. So, and not everyone is ready to meet people halfway at the negotiation table. So how can you, or how can your partner realign and readjust your approach to the goal and get to the same place in a different way? And then we have lack of boundaries. And this is something that I am absolutely terrible at. I am terrified of boundaries. I feel like I have to say yes to everything. And then I'm like, oh no, what have I done now? So, and setting that lack of boundaries can also lead to burnout, feeling like you're carrying the weight of your team. And that's not how a partnership should feel. So making sure that, whenever you're trying to build that trust and build these partnerships, that you're being very upfront about your boundaries, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And this is also where you can use someone else's strengths in your partnership and bring them in and be like, hey, I need to set this boundary, but I don't know how. Can you help me? And then, unfortunately, sometimes not all partnerships are worth it. You tried, you did your best, and maybe your priorities are different now, or the goal has changed, and that's okay. And I think, getting to a place where you can understand and see, like, okay, this partnership was great while it lasted. Things have changed. Now maybe we need to make a break, and making sure to do that in a way that is being respectful, professional, but also setting those boundaries that are super important. And I love the chat. No creates room for yes. Yes, Nicole, I agree. And then relating to not having or having a hard time saying no. Yep, I am the queen of that. All right, so let's get into the good now. All right, so the good. So we all, as nonprofit employees and volunteer engagement professionals, we all want a seat at the table. We want to be a part in making the decisions. And again, this is where the Make It Fun AI thing really cracks me up. So I'm going to read this to you guys. It says, partnership are like the magic beans that get us there, letting us sprinkle in our needs, resources, and unique viewpoints. And I completely agree. And this is where everyone can be heard, the vulnerability, the transparency, the compromise, the communication all come into play. And then it helps to build morale whenever you have multiple people at the table that are super excited about meeting the mission and getting a win-win situation that everyone, is just, when people are excited, it's infectious and it makes you excited too. Yeah, I thought the magic beans was pretty great. Thanks, AI. And it also allows capacity to grow. So teaming up lets you level up personally. I know that through working in partnerships, whether challenging or that went really well, or that, you had to let go of, I feel like personally I've grown so much, especially with learning when to say no, when to take a step back and readjust. And also it's helped in my personal relationships have gotten so much better from learning how to work within a partnership. So again, this is, the good, it creates win-win growth for whatever mission goal that you're chasing. And then lastly, let's get into the better. Innovation, which I know is a word in that word bubble, and I'm so excited. I was so excited to see that on there. So we hear the saying, two heads are better than one, and this is spot on whenever you're trying to wrangle volunteers and run nonprofits. I mean, it takes a whole village to make this work. And it takes a crowd of perspectives that you can whip up creative solutions that are kind of one of a kind to your program, to your organization, as long as you're open to them. And then that also creates a space for you to be a model for other volunteer programs and other organizations that are in similar spots. We've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but more people to share the hats. Spread the love. That's what we do with volunteer engagement. We take our volunteers and we get them excited for our mission, and then we share them out with the community, with our other departments. And, let's say, like, somewhat, let's say your strength is not organization, but you meet this volunteer that is like, oh, I love organizing. It's my favorite thing to do. You can take off that organization hat and hand it to them and be like, hey, I have this mess here that I've created. Can you please organize it for me into something that makes sense, that someone else could come in and understand what I'm trying to say or what I'm trying to do here? Or you're planning an event and that's not your strong suit. Go find your events planner at your organization and be like, hey, you know, I'm trying to plan this volunteer cleanup and there's this piece that I'm really struggling with. Can you help me with that? And it builds connection, it builds knowledge, it's strength sharing. I mean, what more could you ask for in that situation? And also it creates synergy. So it's like you find the last piece to the puzzle and it fits perfectly and it fills in all the gaps and the strengths and weaknesses. And this is something that I've kind of talked about through this entire presentation. And something that can help with this too is, so like personality testing. If you know your personality and you know someone else's, then you can figure out what's the best way to communicate with them, what's their strengths, what's the best way to work. And adjusting your working style or someone else adjusting their working style to what fits for you and what fits for them can make magic happen that you didn't even know was possible. And then I want to go again back to the word trust, because I think that's the most important key to all of this. And yes, crafting trust is very tricky, but once you have earned that, it's a powerhouse for tackling goals and sharing the load amongst your partners, your volunteers, your personal relationships, whatever it may be. Trust is the key for everything. All right, so final thoughts here. Partnerships aren't always easy, but once you figure out what works, it's when the magic happens. Everyone always has something they can contribute. And it's up to you and it's up to them to figure out what that is and how to use it to the best of both worlds. And partnerships can help you grow both personally and professionally and make your relationship stronger with everyone. So now is when I'll take questions, concerns, thoughts, anything like that. And then at the end, I have one final, quote that I want to share with all of you. So I'll open the floor up to any questions.
And you all can type them in the chat box or the Q&A. If you want to raise your hand, we can even take you off mute as well. So however you want to ask a question. I will just say that I loved your challenging good and better examples. I think that really speaks to the work that we do, and I love the positive spin on it.
Thank you.
Megan, I have a question.
Yeah.
Did somebody else have a question? I want to make sure I'm not okay. I loved what you said about like the trust is the foundation across the board. This might be too big of something to tackle right now, but like if people are building partnerships with organizations, like for donor and funding, how does like the trust aspect work that? Because like I can totally see like between especially like colleagues and volunteers and like within the organization, but what about when you're going outside of the organization? Where does that come into play?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like that's going to require a larger conversation. Maybe that's a whole nother presentation. But I think that, you know, when it comes to outside organizations, is again, that reliability comes in. So you want to make sure that you're sharing information that is accurate, that you're doing what they ask you to do. So a lot of times funders will have very specific requests that they have, and that you're following through with those things. And also keeping that trust is key, communication is key. So keeping those open channels of communication. So something that our organization does with corporations, we have corporate members through our development side, and then we also have corporate volunteer groups that come in and help us. And both of those things work together. So we're constantly in communication with our development team to be like, hey, what conversations are you having with this group? And how can we help to boost that to get more dollars in the door or to build these relationships? And like I said, I think I said this earlier too, that volunteer management, we're not just volunteer management in a silo. We have a hand in every single department in our organization and every relationship we have outside of our organization. So just keeping that in mind that we're kind of the magic makers, we make things happen. And just being mindful of that everything we do plays a role in every aspect of your organization. Then I see we have another question. How a live partner with grass?
Yeah, I see that question too. I think we would love to chat with you more about that. We have some info sessions that we do, and I'm happy to drop that in the link, and hopefully we can connect at one of those. Any other questions for Megan specifically about this topic? How do you build trust? How do you, do some of these things? I love the concept of the magic beans. That was a great gift that AI gave us today. So thank you very much for sharing that. We'll give folks just another minute or two. I never want to cut anything off if there's something coming. But I know you also have slides too. So if you have another one you want to go to, maybe we go ahead.
Yeah, sure. And then I also just want to say that, a lot of this presentation is not based in any sort of data. It's mostly like personal experience and kind of like, hopefully it made you feel good about what you're already doing. But I do want to share this quote with you from Mother Teresa that I can do things that you cannot, you can do things that I cannot, and together we can do great things.
Awesome. I love it. I just want to say thank you so much, Megan. This has been an incredibly beneficial session. It's so refreshing. I think with everything everyone is dealing with right now, this was something that was inspiring. And I know I'm leaving feeling good and empowered and like, yes, we can do this. So just really, really appreciate your time and your thoughts and your energy, your positivity today. Such a blessing. For our attendees, we do have a feedback form, so we would love to get your feedback on the presentation today. We always share that. We take your comments and suggestions on future presentations as well. And so we would love to hear from you.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended today. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me. And again, happy National or Global Volunteer Month to all of you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining.